Hey y'all, what's up? Back for another week of music notes with me, Dominique. I hope you enjoyed last week's playlist and post and all of the things. This week is a little different because there wasn't a lot of new music. Whereas like last week, I feel like there was tons of new singles, great new albums, great new EPs. This week was pretty light in terms of actual new content, but the new content was really, really good. Also, thank you to everyone that voted. Because of that, you guys will get an Apple playlist as well, even though Spotify won. I just want to put that out there. Um, Spotify is still, there's still more users on Spotify than there are on Apple Music, but I will upload the playlist there. If you have no clue what I'm talking about, you should follow me on Instagram or Twitter at D_creative. I put a poll up on which platform people use more to stream music. And for a second there, Apple was winning, and I was surprised. But then Spotify pulled through. So let's get into this week's music, shall we? So this week we had an album drop from one of my favorite artists, Emeli Sandé. I've been following Emeli Sandé's career since essentially she first started. Back in 2012. She has not released new music since 2016. Her last album was Long Live the Angels. It was a more R&B centered album than the previous one, which is more pop centric. And this album, Real Life, is much more of a compilation of both of them with gospel in it. I love Emeli Sandé. Like, I truly do. I've seen her live. She is a brilliant singer. But what I think she does well, a lot of people, I've read some of the reviews of this week, have been like, it's very formulaic. But there are very few times when I'm like, stick with the formula. I think I said this about Alessia Cara last week. I love Alessia's formula, but this is different. Like, no, it's not it's not a lot of new experiments. It's not new and bright and different, but it's very honest to me. It's a very honest album. It's a very real album for many people who are marginalized. This is an album that touches on real life. Ironically, not to the name probably, but it's beautiful. It's a beautiful album from start to finish. I didn't skip any track at all. None. And she gave me different sounds. Like, it wasn't straight the way through that I was like, this is R&B or this is pop or this is gospel. It starts out with a very British pop vibe, little Beatles-esque, if you will, in some of the undertones. And then it goes into sort of this like gospel Motown soul moment, all the way to like disco. I had this feeling of like Donna Summers listening to it. My standout tracks are Honest, Survivor, and Same Old Feeling. Same Old Feeling. Whoo, that song was so good. But I have to say that all of these tracks have they're some of like, Honest is more of a ballad, Survivor is more of an anthem, and then Same Old Feeling is like your like traditional good soul R&B track. So I feel like she gave us different things. I don't care what the critics say about that. So here we go. My second, or like I guess the next feature music, are two EPs. One is from an artist named Rule. He is an Australian singer-songwriter. He is 16 years old. And I say that because his voice is very, very deep. And so when you hear him, you're like, oh, I didn't know you were 16. But also, it's just good. It's a good, solid pop record. It's his second EP. He came out with one last year. I listened to that one as well. This one I think is a little more like grown up. He's a whole year older. From 15 to 16. Does this feel like Justin Bieber? I'm gonna let y'all sit with that. That was for free. Because it is a little bit like him. But it's really good. So I have nothing against Justin Bieber. I feel like Justin Bieber's great. I remember seeing him when he was really young, and I was like, this guy's going to do great things. And then he did. And then he sort of is revitalizing himself right now. It's fine. Another a lot of choral arrangements in this one as well, which I think I like it. It's interesting to me that it's sort of being used right now in the way it is behind sort of pop music, because it's such a gospel element and it's such a specific element to R&B and gospel music. And this is like very, it feels like pop, but because of the texture of his voice, it does sound more soulful. I did not skip one track on this whole thing, though. I will tell you that. Not one. I don't even have a standout song because they were just consistently good. Not saying they were consistently great. It was a consistently good pop record. We're allowed to have just good music. And this EP, Free Time by Rule, is just a consistently good record. He co-wrote most of the EP, not album. And I think that's pretty dope to be that young and talented. And, you know, we'll see. I'd like to see where he goes. He actually opened up for Khalid last year, so maybe this will lead to a headlining tour, perhaps in the US or not. I'm really surprised that there aren't more girls talking about him, because I feel like I said, he fits into the Bieber-esque fan club. The next EP, and also my favorite EP of the two, is from Kojey Radical. Kojey Radical is a British spoken word poet, grime-esque hip-hop rap artist, alternative rap artist. This is his fourth EP coming out. It's called Cashmere Tears. Try and say that fast. This is a highly instrumental, and the way he described it, this is like sort of his first time doing an instrumental background album. And you can tell it's very, there's a lot of soul in there. The bass line of the songs, whoever's that bass player, he deserves an award. It's really good. The standout tracks for me from this one are 2020, Sugar featuring Amare, which is the only feature on the whole EP, and Cashmere Tears. I really love this one. It's more upbeat. It doesn't necessarily, it's very conscious. So like, I feel like this was a work that he waited on. The way that he describes it is like, this is the one that he really wanted to get out. So this project is really special to him. I'm excited to see what full-length album comes from this in the future, but this is really good. This is another one I didn't really skip. I just had standout tracks. This is a great EP. This is not a good EP. This is a great EP. I would tell everyone to listen to it. Specifically, if you have a good sound system, I would listen to it on that and not necessarily in a car or in headphones. There's a lot of instrumentation that I think is really good. It's not like an eclectic sound. So comparatively to like last week with Earth Gang, this is more like streamlined, not so many sounds happening at one time. And the lyrics really stand out to this. He's a phenomenal writer. So I have to say that I really loved the Kojey Radical album. There are some other albums that I'm still in the middle of listening to, but these were my top 3 of the week. In terms of singles, I feel like One Republic is just getting ready to gear up to give us something, because they had a new single that came out this week. It wasn't as good as Wanted last week, so I didn't feature it. But I'm ready for whatever comes next. All of their new singles feel like, and the name of the single is Somebody to Love, just so you know. All their singles feel like old One Republic, and a lot of people feel like they sort of shifted away from their sound with this last album. It was much more R&B and less pop-centered, whereas this feels like it went back to the old pop sound, which is exciting for me. So I love One Republic. I think Ryan Tedder is one of the best songwriters in the business. I think most people would also agree with that. He's a really phenomenal songwriter. And so I'm super excited to see what comes next, or if the album is just dropping like really, really soon. Let's see. Who else was on my list? Sorry, I have to look at my playlist because there's too much. There's too much for me to remember. Oh, my featured artist. So this week I'm doing something a little different. There will be a featured post. So there will be the post that explains more about this in the bio. But there'll also be a featured post this week from an artist that I really, really enjoyed discovering slash just listening to all week. Because this was a lighter week in music, I found the artist Little Sims, also another UK rapper. Sue me. But she is also in the new series Top Boy, which is now on, well, new to us. There were 2 seasons that came out in the UK a couple years ago. Drake really loved it and brought it to Netflix, and now we have Top Boy on Netflix, all 3 seasons. She is actually one of the actresses in the show, and she also is a rapper in the UK. She has 4 mixtapes and 3 albums. Her newest album, Gray Area, came out earlier this year, and I discovered her from listening to a bunch of different interviews. I really love her stuff, and also getting ready to watch the show. If you're wondering what Top Boy is, the closest equivalent in the United States would be like The Wire, maybe? Yeah. But she is a phenomenal rapper. She's when I say phenomenal, I'm not kidding. She has just a very distinct sound. She's very confident in her delivery. One of my favorite songs by her is Boss, and Venom. Venom is also featured in the Top Boy soundtrack, which is now on all streaming platforms, which also has like a lot of other great UK rap and grime artists on it. But yeah, she's just really, really, something about her delivery is bar none some of the best that I've heard. She's also an artist that controls a lot of her sound. So she's independently, like, she has her own label. She puts out her music without really say from anyone. And she does a lot of concept albums. So actually Gray Area is the first album out of the 3 that is not a concept album, that is just like a real life, what was on her heart, what was on her mind, versus the first 2, which were both concept albums that centered around the idea of fame for the first one, and the second one was actually written like a movie with the concept of Alice in Wonderland. There will be so much more on her and all of these things in the link in the feature, which will also be linked below. That, I think, is it for this week on, Music Notes with me. But if there's anything that you also want me to feature or review or talk about, send it to me. You should do that. That's why I say you should follow me on Instagram and Twitter at D_creative. And I'll be back next week. There's obviously new music in the playlist. There will also be a featured playlist with all my favorite songs by Little Sims. They're like a lot, so just get ready to get some good rap. I hope you enjoy it. Have a good week.